Good morning from the Freedom of Information and Privacy Association. I'm Patrick Farnsworth, and this is your Access and Privacy Online news summary for Saturday, July 19th. In Canadian Access news, records reveal the Alberta Government literally following the lists of most banned books in the United States to create their own book bans. Plus, there's evidence of shortfalls in Indigenous procurement and failures in emergency response. In privacy and whistleblower news, we see Irish rappers in the spotlight, a rise in antisemitism and Nazi rhetoric in Ontario schools, and one local municipality seeking to better support and protect its own whistleblowers. We have our regular reports of access and privacy news south of the border, including new details about privacy violations from Facebook and Meta. To wrap up, we have a special cluster of stories that intersect access to information and privacy in the UK with their efforts to protect people who served in a foreign conflict. As always, be sure to check out the links in the show notes for the full stories. Let's dive in. We begin in Alberta, where Brett McKay, LGI reporter at the Investigative Journalism Foundation, reveals internal government emails indicating officials used United States lists of most banned books, alongside a controversial database called BookLooks, to shape school book restrictions. Records obtained through access to information show staff intentionally sought out the top 100 banned books in America to justify targeting LGBTQ2S+ and anti-racist titles. It also appears the department also cross-checked titles censored by book bans in Austin, Texas, to see if they were banned in Alberta. The documents raise concerns about the American influence on Canadian education policy and the chilling effect this has on classroom content and free expression. Moving to Ottawa, Sonal Gupta, LGI reporter at Canada's National Observer, filed requests that show federal departments are falling short of Canada's 5% Indigenous procurement target, with many not even tracking their progress. The policy, introduced in 2021, requires that at least 5% of all federal spending must go to Indigenous businesses to address economic gaps and increase Indigenous participation in government supply chains. An Indigenous business is defined as one owned and operated by elders, band, and tribal councils, businesses in the Indigenous Business Directory, or on modern treaty beneficiary lists. Advocates say the government's promises on reconciliation are being undermined by weak implementation and a lack of accountability. This gap between stated policy and operational reality is another example of how access to information reveals critical transparency shortfalls. And in New Brunswick, Natalie Sturgeon, LGI reporter at the St. Croix Courier, continues to inform reporting from FOI requests and reveal that communities in Charlotte County are still struggling with emergency response and wildfire resiliency. In April, the Department of Natural Resources and Energy Development launched the Wildfire Resiliency Program, after an announcement from the federal and provincial governments for about $40 million to increase New Brunswick's wildfire preparedness. The funding was used in part for new equipment like hoses, tanks, drones, trailers, and upskilled training for personnel. It all raises questions about emergency preparedness and equitable provincial support for rural communities. Turning to privacy and public discourse. A prominent Jewish organization has been pushing for Canada to deny entry to two bands being investigated in the UK after their appearance at a popular British music festival last month. Canada's immigration minister is refusing to confirm whether Irish rappers and an English punk rap duo could be barred from entering Canada under security laws. This follows controversial detentions in the US of artists with political messages. Critics warn that vague policies and lack of transparency in border decisions pose risks to freedom of expression and cultural exchange, especially when foreign intelligence may be influencing domestic border policy. Next, J.P. Antonacci, LGI reporter at the Hamilton Spectator, reports that in Norfolk County, Ontario, the council has approved a new whistleblower hotline to report fraud, waste, and abuse. There is currently no way for whistleblowers to anonymously submit tips alleging the misuse or theft of county funds or property, or to report alleged criminal activity that puts people or the natural environment at risk. A new third-party platform is part of a broader move to increase accountability and trust in local government, and comes as more municipalities look for ways to better protect internal whistleblowers. It is important to note that cautions are being raised as counselors recognize the proposed hotline could become a vehicle for vendettas against county employees. Meanwhile, Mitchell Konsky, LJI reporter at the Canadian Jewish News, brings us results from a disturbing new survey that shows a rise in anti-Semitic incidents and Nazi rhetoric in Ontario schools, including students wearing swastikas and making references to Hitler. Experts say the spread of this hateful content has been supercharged by online platforms, with schools and policymakers struggling to keep up. Many of the incidents have no direct link to geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. The report highlights systemic failures in school responses to anti-Semitism, with almost half of all reported incidents never being investigated by school authorities. The report's findings lead to calls for greater protection of student safety and action to address growing extremism in educational spaces. That includes the need for whistleblower protections for educators, acknowledging the fears many teachers face about potential backlash. Now to the U.S. Late breaking this week, a settlement was reached in the class action lawsuit faced by Mark Zuckerberg and Meta. We'll have more about that in the week ahead. In the meantime, Mary Claire Dale and Barbara Ortete at the Associated Press bring us a great report from the opening of the case, detailing the history around the class action lawsuit. The case came from the privacy scandal involving the Cambridge Analytica political consulting firm. Investors allege in their lawsuit that Meta did not fully disclose the risks that Facebook users' personal information would be used and misused by Cambridge Analytica. Previous to this, Meta has faced significant fines in Europe and reached a $725 million privacy settlement with users. These legal actions come amid increasing scrutiny of how tech giants operate, and a broader debate about what real accountability for data misuse should look like. Zuckerberg had been expected to testify in the $8 billion lawsuit. This settlement means some of the most sought-after information and testimony will be kept from the light of day. Elsewhere in U.S. governance, Donald Trump's first judicial nominee of his second term has been confirmed by the Senate, further shifting the judiciary's ideological makeup. The decision approved Whitney Hermendorfer as a judge for the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee even said that Trump is only focused on, quote, a nominee's perceived loyalty to him and his agenda, end quote. According to the Senate Majority Leader, they are working quickly to confirm Trump's judicial nominees, even though they are not facing the same number of judicial vacancies they did during Trump's first term. Separately, in New York City, a former NYPD commissioner is suing the mayor, alleging he ran the police department like a criminal enterprise, a case that may reveal troubling practices within one of America's largest policing institutions. In a federal lawsuit filed on Wednesday, the ex-commissioner alleged the mayor and his inner circle showered unqualified loyalists with promotions, buried allegations of misconduct, and gratuitously punished whistleblowers. The longtime FBI official and former commissioner was appointed last fall by the mayor to stabilize a department shaken by federal investigations and high-profile resignations, but stepped down less than a month into the job. We end today in the United Kingdom, where a major story that intersects the inappropriate release of personal information and access to information unveiling the fallout. To start, an email sent in error at the Ministry of Defense revealed the identities of Afghan interpreters and allies, placing them at risk from the Taliban. A spreadsheet containing the personal information of nearly 19,000 people who had applied to come to Britain after the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan was accidentally released because of a defense official's email error. That breach of personal information led to a secretive scramble to bring thousands of Afghans to safety in Britain, many of whom were relocated through classified programs that remain undisclosed to the public. While several news organizations had learned of the leaked list, they were barred from publishing stories about it. And the program was hidden from the media, the public, and lawmakers in parliament. On top of that, key information was also kept from the Afghan people themselves, who had assisted UK forces and whose personal details had been disclosed. It is a powerful reminder of how failures in data protection can have life or death consequences. It also underscores the tension between transparency, national security, and the ethical responsibility to protect those who risk their lives for a country in foreign conflicts. As always, we hope you found today's stories help you stay informed about the latest issues surrounding privacy, information management, and public transparency. To help us keep the mics on, be sure to subscribe through FIPA News Monitoring or consider a donation. Our writer is Sean Fisk. Original music in today's show was composed by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. I'm Patrick Farnsworth, your host and producer. Thank you for joining. A big FIPA thank you to all the contributors, reporters, and outlets that make this podcast possible, and to you, our listeners, who help make this successful. Stay safe and stay informed.